In 1999, a young writer from Ireland published his first crime novel featuring a cop turned private detective named Charlie Parker. The story was set in Maine, which the book's author, John Connolly, had gotten to know while working a summer job in Scarborough.
That was 25 years ago, and John Connolly, who now owns a home in Portland where he spends some time each year, is about to publish the 21st novel in his best-selling Charlie Parker series. It's called The Instruments of Darkness. When he started writing the first Parker novel more than a quarter century ago, Connolly was working as a newspaper reporter, and he still remembers what was going through his head at the time.
I was thinking that I didn't want to be a journalist. That was the main thing. I decided that journalism was quite a tough way to make a living, and I wasn't a very good journalist. I was an okay feature writer, but I wasn't a good news reporter. And I remember just feeling very oppressed by Ireland. And I just remember sitting down and thinking, I'm not writing about Ireland. I'm going to write something that has nothing to do with Ireland.
You had worked one summer at the Black Point Inn in Scarborough, and that provided a connection to Maine. But that's a pretty thin thread, considering that thread turned into something that became the Charlie Parker books. And now, a quarter century later, you're still bringing out new books about Charlie Parker. What do you make of the fact that this has endured?
A lot of it's character. I think people who don't understand or look down their noses at crime fiction, mystery fiction, think, oh, these just people just reading it for plot and escapism. But all good fiction is about character. And that's what keeps people coming back to a series.
I know that you've always liked putting Maine elements into the books, and you've done that yet again with this new book, The Instruments of Darkness. The very opening scene in the book takes place at Becky's Diner on Commercial Street in Portland.
Just down the road from where I live. Yeah, I can see Becky's Diner when I get up in the morning. You know, so it's always tempting me. You know, should I go down to Becky's or should I have something healthy? Yeah, it is. You know, when you mentioned earlier that I had that very brief introduction to it when I was in my 20s. But I kept coming back year after year after that. There was something about the place that just connected with me. It was a place I felt very comfortable in. And very quickly, I found a house here that I could come to and work, and that's what I've been doing for the last week or so, trying to write the next book. I love coming here.
Have your readers offered feedback to you that has ended up shaping something that you've done in a book later on?
That's an interesting question. No, I suspect I'm a benign dictator, in that I'm not really that interested in, you know, I don't read reviews, for example. Like a long time ago, I gave up reading reviews of my books. I'm not interested.
Why not?
Because I won't believe the good stuff and I'll be tempted to believe the bad stuff. I remember interviewing James Lee Burke many years ago, and he gave me a really good piece of advice that took me a long time to take on, which was that you have to learn to ignore the catcalls and the applause. It's a very good lesson in life as much as in writing.
The new book, The Instruments of Darkness, as we said, starts out right here in Maine. What's the basic story that you're telling here?
It's about a young mother called Colleen Clark who is accused of abducting and possibly killing her child. And Parker is engaged by his lawyer and Colleen's lawyer to do the groundwork for the trial. I'm not a fan of legal thrillers. I always think if it's legal, it's not thrilling, as anybody who's ever been involved with the law will tell you. And we all have our blind spots in fiction. That's one of mine. And so I wanted to write a kind of legal thriller that actually never reaches the courtroom steps. That is all about the mechanics of what happens before then, because I thought that was much more interesting, the motivations of people before they actually take the stand. And so that became the substance of The Instruments of Darkness.
So this is a milestone, as we said. 25 years of Charlie Parker novels.
And like you, just still staying young and pretty. You know, some of us just have good genes, Rob. And you have to just feel sorry for the people who don't. You know, I know that you do. I know you're good like that, you know. The little people are lovely, aren't they, Rob? They can be very needy, the little people, but they're lovely.
So what are you doing to celebrate this achievement?
What am I doing to celebrate this achievement? I'm pretty much just working on the next book more than anything else. And I have a book out in October as well, which is a book of short stories. And I've just finished my PhD. I've been doing a doctorate for 3 years.
Those are wonderful accomplishments, but those are not celebrations.
I'm not very good. Well, they are. You know, it's a weird thing that mostly you're just grateful that you haven't been found out. You know, I'm just very relieved that I've had 25 years. I never thought I would have that. I genuinely didn't. I thought when I published my first book, that would be it. You know, people go, well, that was fine. Thanks very much. We don't want any more of that. Thanks very much. You go back and do whatever you were doing before and go get a job cleaning windows, a proper job. So I don't, thing of celebrating, it's probably not in my nature. I think I'm too much of a worrier to do it.
Too much of a worker, too. Again, the name of John Connolly's new book is The Instruments of Darkness. You can find out about his other books, his podcast, and more by going to the 207 section of our app or website.